Good afternoon, YouTube world. I'm your host, Paul Italia. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to my channel. So I got the guy that's been all up in the news in the arm wrestling of late. RVJ, what is up, brother? How you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. Just kicking it, chilling out tonight, playing it low key. I got this thing popping up on my screen. Yeah, I got it. All right. Yeah, just chilling out, man. It's all good.
Very nice. So this weekend, we got a big event going down in Dubai, set up by Core Sports, Adam Silver, Larry Wheels. We got King of Table. There's a couple of matches on there. Just wanted to get your predictions and what you think is going to go down. First match being Pavlo versus Sabin. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that match.
That's a tough one because I haven't seen a lot of Sabin recently, but I know his big claim to fame is, I guess, like somewhere like 10 years ago or some shit. He beat Levon, and he's been hanging on to it. And I do think that he pulled Travis, and I don't know if he got that win, but Travis popped his pack or something or wanted out or whatever. Strikes me as a little bit of a loose cannon. Well, Pablo is just like a big, strong guy. It's kind of quiet, but if I was guessing, I'm gonna guess Sabin might take his hand. I think Sabin might be a little too much worldly experience. Pablo's a strong guy, but I think for that weight class, he's at that level, the risk might be a little suspect. I mean, he's probably like a gatekeeper to that higher level. And then like Sabin might be the guy who snuck in the door and is just kind of in the club drinking the drinks, and Sabin's trying to, Pablo's like kind of the doorman. He's not quite in there yet.
Yeah, I heard the same thing with Sabin. I know I've been in the sport 3 years and I haven't got to see him compete. But just like you said, the claim to fame, he has that famous pin on Levon, but that was before Levon turned into the mutant he is today. So,
oh yeah, of course. I mean, that guy's gaining like 10% body weight a year, so it's really hard to keep pace with that. And of course, when somebody blows up, it's like, I bet you there's some asshole out there that's still talking about dunking on Michael Jordan in high school. But I mean, that's really, not relevant for where Michael Jordan landed. So I do think that the way Sabin pulls and his experience is going to be a trouble for Pablo, but that's not saying that I'd be surprised if it went the other way. I mean, he is a strong guy, did really well with Brzenk. I just think that the hand control is going to be a problem.
Yeah, I got to know Pablo. I threw him in a couple super matches. He was in Oklahoma with us. Very strong guy. I see him putting up these videos. I mean, he's benching in high 400s, making it look easy, doing reps with it. Dude's got a lot of table knowledge. So he's definitely a reputable arm wrestling. Just like I said, I really don't know much about Sabin, so I'm really interested for this match. You actually have a prediction score-wise, what you think? It's going to be 6 rounds.
I actually think that Sabin will probably be pretty conditioned. I think he's hungry to get on the stage. And I think if he wins the first one, he's going to sweep it 3-0. And I'm going to say that he'll win the first one. So I'm guessing 3-0.
Well, it's 6 rounds, so it would have to be
6.
Yeah.
Then I'll say 6-0 unless somebody gets sloppy and it falls into a hook. And I understand how strong Pablo is, but I just think that a guy who has control and wins the match, the guy who's trying everything from a shitty position, he just degrades faster. Unless you're a guy like Crazy George or Michael Todd or some of these guys who wedge and use different locks and stuff.
Okay, so you guys heard it. 6-0 is RVJ's prediction on that one. Moving on to the next match, we got John the Goat Brzenk, and he's got his hands full that day going against Denis Cyplenkov. And Denis is making his big comeback, and boy, is he looking strong. I saw a lot of the pictures coming from Dubai. Dude is just looking like a mutant, man. Guy is so jacked and everything. So do you think John's table savvy is going to be enough to take on that extreme power of Denis Cyplenkov?
To be fair, people use like savvy and technique and little words like that make strong guys that lose feel good. I mean, let's not discount how strong John Brzenk is everywhere. I mean, he might not have the physical presence of the mutant of Denis, but he didn't win by trickery all these years. He's been flat out stronger than the guys he's beating for the most part as well. Do I think that today, where John is today and where Denis is, it's really an interesting story because Denis is like, back from the dead almost, right? This guy was in tough shape not long ago. And then he kind of, been creeping around the arm wrestling scene. And now all of a sudden he's getting in shape pretty quick. And John's been on a good run. He's coming off of the last 2 losses, which I really think he could have won both of those. I mean, I really think he could have beat Angarbayev, and I really think he could have beat Irakli. But, you get enough wear and tear on your arm. You see some of the practice videos. We can all read into that. Denis looks, who knows what the propaganda and hype is, right? Because Denis is a big draw. How strong is Denis? But I think that he seems very strong, but I think he's strong in the ways that John's good at negating too. He likes to use his hand and control people and really get on someone's wrist and shut down their pronation. And John happens to be really good in that angle. So even a kind of off-kilter John, I think, always poses a threat for Denis. I just don't know where Denis is now and where John is. All we can do is this is a real speculation match.
So do you have any prediction what the outcome's going to be on this one?
I think they're going to dogfight it, and I think they might even split hairs. They might go to a silver bullet. Okay. I think John might be able to take the leverages and be a little bit better on the enduring round, even though he thought endurance was a problem with Irakli. I don't think it was too much of a problem. And I don't think Denis is going to come with the same type of angles and just relentless drive that Irakli did with John. I think he'd be sitting on his bicep and getting just as tired.
Okay. So when it goes to that silver bullet round, who do you have winning the outcome of that?
Man, I'm going with I think Denis is probably going to win it if what we are seeing on the internet is true. We all know how that shit works. You can't really trust the internet, but based on common opponents and trainings, and we're just trying to do figure guys out from afar and make a prediction. I mean, really, it might not be 3-3. It could be a blowout. I think Denis will win it. I'm giving 3-3 in respect to John's ability. But where is he, when we think of John at that 100% guy, where is he from, the retired version to the best version? Somewhere in the middle there. It just depends on where he's at.
Yeah, I went out on a limb and I predicted Denis 4-2. And I hope I'm wrong with that because I'm rooting for John and all. But, I just think Denis is just going to be too overwhelmingly powerful. I mean, that dude is one of the strongest guys on the planet and all. I know he's making his comeback, but, he's only 42 years old, I believe. And, John being 58 these days, I think it's going to really be a big mountain for John to climb. But I hope I'm wrong on that one.
Yeah. Your prediction sounds about right. But again, the way Denis is structured and how he pulls, I think is very good. John kind of made his legacy pulling dudes like that in, bigger, maybe even body stronger in his younger days. Guys that were very powerful coming across like Richard Lukes and Clev Deans with super big, strong hands and stuff. So I think pulling guys like that and being that giant slayer is almost a comfort zone for him. And he's so used to people running away from him that it might be scary. It might be an easier day when somebody actually commits to gripping him and coming to him and not playing fuck around games. It might be, another match I won't really be surprised on because Denis is just coming back. Denis isn't that guy that he was 10 years ago. The guy did, tippy toe left and right on death's door from what I understand.
So now we go to the main event match. We got Hermes Gasparini, the Italian stallion, and he is going against the Georgian Hulk, Levon. What's your prediction on this one?
Yeah, I think Levon's going to sweep it 6-0. I guess with Hermes' style, they say if someone can do it right now, I mean, I don't know. Hermes just has a way about him that kind of rubs me off a little bit. He just, and I can't help but think that even though it wasn't this, he's another guy though that's, he fell into the same chemical waste pit that Levon did. He fell into the same fucking pit. He doubled his body weight in a very short amount of time. So we don't know. I mean, I remember like when he was the guy who came over to WAL and got smacked up by Matt Mask. I want to say he was in that like 220, 230 range. Then they had the rematch. He was like 245. And I thought, wow, that was big. And then next thing you know, keeps going. Now he's damn near 300. So we really can't tell. I know that not long ago, or maybe time just flies, Alex Cadorette was able to pop his wrist and beat him in a super match. A lot of people forget that. I feel bad for that dude, right? Because he stomped Hermes. I mean, literally whipped his ass. And everybody still talks about Hermes, but nobody's talking about Alex. Like, how did he become, redheaded stepchild? So, I mean, Hermes might be great. He might be stronger. He might have leveled up. He might be there. But I can't look past the fact that somebody that's a good notch, less experienced, and in a little weaker in all the areas, went like 6-0 with Hermes. So, I mean, he would have had to do some incredible ground gaining to beat Levon.
Yeah, I also had it 6-0, but I did throw that possibility of a 5-1, meaning that Hermes surprises him one round with a quick flash. Because the only thing I got to say about Hermes, coming from that lightweight, these guys are very technical and they're very fast. And he moves a lot quicker than a normal super heavyweight. So I was thinking it's a possibility he might be able to sneak that one round in there. Then Levon's going to make that transition. And I don't think it's going to go good for Hermes after that.
Now, yeah, there is an asterisk I'd like to put onto my prediction as well in that lane. I think that Hermes is probably better conditioned and more comfortable in a dogfight. People who like Levon, well, first, we did see Ongarbayev kind of flat in Levon when they did the top 8. He kind of got him flat. So there is a lane there that if Hermes is like 10% stronger, that he could possibly flatten or take his hand. And now Levon's in a dogfight. And here's a guy who said he wants to win every round. He doesn't want to win every super match. He doesn't want to lose a single round. And he's putting a lot of pressure on himself to, go get that knockout instead of just winning the fight. And if he loses a round, like he's not used to being in the losing side or in dogfights, maybe in years past, but now he's used to being the slayer. And I think emotionally and physically, he might collapse if he gets into a dogfight and actually gets a pin thrown on him. I think that if Hermes gets a pin at any point, he's really, really in that fight to go win the rest of them.
Can you still see me on your screen? I think it.
Yeah, I can see you. You just switched angles.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So the shoulders look better from this angle. You're a little more capped this way.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So the one thing is Hermes is known for his hand strength. I'm hearing, so that is one of his strengths. So he might be able to give Levon's hand a little some. But I mean, I've heard from Corey West, who's also got a hand like a softball. Trying to grip Levon is pretty crazy when you actually grip up with him. So it's going to be really, really hard for Hermes to take that hand.
Yeah. I mean, because worst case scenario, they end up in the straps and then they're tied, and then it comes down to, nuances there. I mean, I'm thinking Levon's going to be 6-0. I would love in this. It's fucked up because I don't want to parade either one of them. You know what I mean? I'm not a real big fan of either one of the movements, but I would like Hermes to do it just so it's not this. There's this, aura around Levon right now that he's untouchable until he decides to quit. And sports are built on upsets, and so oftentimes number 1 is only like 1% ahead of number 2, or not even. You know what I mean? People in the Olympics, the guy who wins the 100-yard dash is only like 0.2 of a second ahead of the guy who took number 10. You know what I mean? So sometimes the gap seems bigger than it is. And I hear people say things and profess things. And as a fan that, likes to see the field be balanced a little bit, I'd like to see the upset, but I don't know if I could handle, him being the dude to do it.
Well, I got to say this, bro. I'm rooting for Hermes right now because me being a good friend of Jerry and I'll be in his corner for the next match. He is going against Hermes in that East versus West. So if Hermes gets this win, Jerry's going for number one in the world. So I'm kind of a little favoritism to Hermes right now.
Yeah, well, I can see the agenda. I think Hermes is a little bit of a problem for Jerry's style. I think Jerry will fuck him up if it stops in a top roll. But I think Hermes is like he did with Dave. He is quick at throwing the shoulder on top of it. So Jerry will have to work with that.
One thing I got to say is Jerry has been, I got him back into the sport. You know, he took that 3-4 year break. And, you know, I was the guy that kind of lit the fire on his ass. And the first match that he wanted was Hermes. He's wanted that from day one. So he's pretty confident in going against Hermes. I hope he's not too confident with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see Jerry do it. Jerry's done a lot of weird shit that I didn't think a person should be able to do. And, you know, he's done that many times before where he comes out of a layoff and he shoots for number one, and the people who don't know who he is thinks he's some crazy person, and you just want to shoot for it. And, you know, he's done it, you know, so why not? I mean, fuck it. It's arm wrestling. All you can do is lose. You don't die.
I hear that. So next topic I want to get into, which I want to learn a little about you. You know, I've been in this sport 3 years and I haven't got to see you compete other than that time Chuck Ryder called you out online. I was watching that whole drama from the beginning, going back and forth. You told him to jump on a flight, come over by you. Chuck, I think it was like the next weekend later, we got a big match. I got to see you in action. I mean, Chuck is a very, very strong opponent. I think he had a lot of weight on you. I think you were coming right off the couch. You kind of made that look easy. And I was just like, wow. I was like, this guy's got some real talent. Me hanging out with Travis. Travis has always talked highly about you. And we all know Travis only likes to talk about the beast. So when he ever talks about somebody else, you listen. And he always told me, he goes, this guy's got some real skills. He's got the genetics to back it up. And Travis always said, if I could just coach this guy, he's like, he'd be untouchable in the world. So, you know, I've been very anxious to see you get back in action. But I also want to learn a little about you. I want to learn, how did you find arm wrestling and how long have you been in the sport for?
Yeah, so I found arm wrestling through, as a kid. It was kind of like what everyone at my family did at their cookouts. And, you know, my father was a naturally strong guy who did construction, and, you know, all the guys would get together and they'd arm wrestle. And that was kind of how they saw the bricklayers thought they were stronger than the roofers, and they thought they were stronger than the farmers. And we lived in like a blue collar Barville area, and you can't, if some guy thinks he's stronger than you or talks shit, you can't go to a gym and lay down on a bench. Nor would those guys ever be caught dead doing it. So they fucking arm wrestle for beers or money or whatever. And my dad was very good, and it became the thing that my family did at cookouts and stuff like that. So I grew up watching it. It was something kind of like, for me, arm wrestling settled disputes. It was kind of in the DNA. My Pepe did it. And my cousin was, like, for his generation, my family, the strongest one in the family. And he kept hearing on the radio when there was an over-the-top qualifier back in like 1985. They're doing the qualifier for the actual tournament for the movie. So he was going to all these qualifiers, and he kept making it all the way to the finals of these big, huge qualifiers in Boston and everywhere. But he would bump into the ace that showed up at that one, like at the time a world champion like Norm Devio, or, you know, somebody else that was like of that level. Like, he got put out as an amateur, beating everybody by the guy who was the big swinging dick at that time. So I remember hearing the stories and thinking about it. So I kind of knew that there was tournaments, and I kind of was exposed to it. But it was kind of like when I came into my own in my 20s. I was 24 years old, and I was curious about a tournament because I saw that there was a separation between me and the other guys, like at the bars or wherever. It was just a very big gap, it felt like. And I wanted to know where I stood. Was I a big fish in a small pond? You know, was there 1,000 guys just like me walking around? So I wanted to know, was I the best guy in my city, the state, the country, the world? You can only speculate. You know, if you talk that shit, you don't know unless you have a result. So I went to a tournament, and I found a tournament in Vermont. And my first tournament I went, and you know, met a lot of people there, and the rest is history. I've been competing. This will be my 19th year.
Wow. And so you went to that first tournament, and how did you do in it?
So truth be told, I went all the way up there. It was three and a half hours. And I walked in, and I had never seen an arm wrestling table. Like nowadays, people wait for their first tournament, and like they'll train for like 6 months or a year. They get their technique down. They're with a group of people. They see shit online. This was before there was YouTube. This was before there was any videos out there. And I walked up to the first time I ever saw an arm wrestling table. I was in an open class of a tournament. And I was in my class, and I'm in there, and it was a big tournament. It was a very popular tournament in New England, and guys came down from Canada and all over. And there was about 24 guys in my class. And I'm looking around the room, and I see guys with all their fucking jerseys on and their jackets on, and the 1987 Worlds in Romania and national championships. I felt like a turd. I was like, I'm in a real deal situation. I wanted to slither away and go the fuck home. But I was there. It was like a 3.5 hour ride, and I nutted up. And I was looking around the room, and there was one motherfucker there that just the way he was built and carried himself, and he knew everyone in the room. I was like, I don't want to pull him. Who do I draw first round? That fucking guy. And he beat me. And I was like, wow, I felt like such an asshole. I felt like when Lincoln Hawk lost to John Grizzly, and he bet all the money on himself in the movie, and his, it was like the sad violins and all that shit. I was like, I don't belong here. I felt like an asshole. So I kind of collected my shit, and they called me back up to the table. I was B-side first round. And in my mind, I was like, I didn't think he was stronger than me. I was like, something happened. And then I just kind of like, stuck my shoulder a little tighter, got a little more aggressive. I ended up going up all the way up the B-side, beating the kid who beat me, and I won the whole event.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my first event, I won first place in the opens, right? And I went second left, and the kid who beat me the first round right-handed won the second left. He won left-handed, and I took second to him.
So now you know all about arm wrestling and all. What do you think made you such a good arm wrestler from the beginning?
I think it's a combination of things. I think I have a lot of genetic attributes. You'll hear that I have a very big hand, but it's also a very strong hand. Before I got into arm wrestling, I was doing like all that shit you see Khaled do that everyone's like kissing his ass for doing. Yeah. I competed in grip tournaments back in like 2002, 3, 4. And, all the best guys at the time that were in the grip world, all the feats, a lot of that, all that shit you're seeing that seems new now, I was doing 20 years ago. So I had a world class, actually in 2004, on the list of the strongest grips in the world on the grip board. 2004, I was labeled as the guy with the strongest grip in the world. So I came into arm wrestling where hand was such a part of it, and guys couldn't take my hand or wrist. But on top of it, I was also very body strong. I wasn't just a hand. I was a guy that could curl immense weights, and I worked out. I had good, strong shoulders, and I was big to my weight ratio. So I was very lean. I had good musculature. I was strong. I could do, weighted one-arm pull-ups and shit like that. So even if guys couldn't take my hand and threw me in a hook right out the gates, I had a lot of good power and, incredible hand and wrist strength, whether it was occupational, hobby, or, genetic. It was a combination. And, I took off with it pretty quick. I was competing right out of the gates with guys who were national champions.
Yeah. Were you an athlete back in high school?
Yeah, I was a good athlete, but I didn't get to see any of it through because I dropped out of school as soon as I could.
Right, but did you play on any sports teams?
I did some boxing. I wrestled, and I did track. In high school, I didn't hit puberty. I hit puberty weird, like when I was 17 years old. So I was like 5'2", 90 pounds my whole time through high school. I was very small, and my coach was like a friend of my mom's, and we had like a Division I high school. And I really wanted to play football because I had, good hands, and I was really fast. I was on the track team. I was a state champ hurdler, but he just thought that like if I got hit by one of these goons, he didn't want me to get hurt. And I was like, it's because I was so little. He thought I would have got hurt. And it kind of sucked my spirit out. And then when I hit 17 in that year, I grew like a foot, but I was already out of school. So yeah, I played a little bit with a semi-pro team when I went out to Vegas, and they wanted to send me to a combine, but I was so far removed from the sport. Like a lot of these guys, it's like a culture thing. Like they grew up on it, throwing the football with their dad. And, I did it because somebody thought I would be really good at it. And I got into it for like a little bit, and I was like, it wasn't for me.
Okay, I want to back up to after you won that tournament, what did you like? When did you really get serious with arm wrestling? I mean, obviously you came in winning already, but when did you actually find a team and start like a daily practice on the table and all?
I'd say I went through the winter, and then I'd say the following year, like after the new year, I found a team. I went to a practice. I looked up some guys. I went to a practice, and I met another guy who found a practice that was close to me and was like, you should hit us up here. And that's pretty much been my mainstay. I've come and gone because I've moved around the country. But now that I'm back in the air, it's the same practice I'm going to now that I went to Wednesday last night is the one I started with in like early 2005.
Okay, do you have a mentor in the sport or somebody that you used to look up to? Like out of all the athletes and everything, who was your favorite arm wrestler growing up?
Well, I mean, the guy who started coaching me, the more and more, it's like dad wisdom. Everything my dad ever told me, I thought he was a crazy old fucking man stuck in the old times. And then as more time went by and that situation would happen to me and come true, I learned that he wasn't a crazy old man. He was like a fucking fortune teller. It all came true. And now, like when I tell my kids that shit, it's almost like you have kids. You have kids, you say, oh, don't climb on that. You're going to get fucked up. And then they keep doing it and they fall and cry. And you're kind of like, told you. So that's kind of what my dad did through my whole life. And a lot of that is kind of like Badger. Drews has been like my arm wrestling dad. A lot of things I've kind of like disagreed with and kind of like had my own ideology. And I was like, as time went by, even still, some of the things I'm like, yeah, you're right. All right. Okay, you got me. But for arm wrestlers that I thought I tried to emulate, it was hard for people to try to coach me because they didn't have a lot of the attributes and strengths. So I was getting into harder matches because people were teaching me how to pull what works for them. So it didn't necessarily wasn't best suited for me. Like I've told people, if you taught Mike Tyson to box like Muhammad Ali, he wouldn't have been a very good fighter. And if you taught Muhammad Ali to fight like Mike Tyson, neither one of them would have really been great. They got to find their lane, what works for them. And I sat down and I found like online just when YouTube started coming out, and I was like, I'm getting tied up with these guys. I know I can crush, but I'm not. Like I wasn't pulling right. And I started looking at guys. I had a guy on the phone tell me that I reminded him a lot of a young Ron Bath or John Brzenk. So what did I do right away? I looked at their videos and I'm like, how are they so dominant through the hand? I'm like, I know my hand's adequate. I know my wrist is good. And I just basically like mimicked what those guys did the best I could. And instantly it changed like my success in weeks. Engin Terzi was another one. He's still a lot more explosive. I'd like to adopt that. But I'd say like Ron Bath, John, Engin Terzi, those guys have been, the staples of who've been my favorites.
Three super legends of our sport. Those are three guys, great guys to follow.
Yeah, and I respect the real versatility. More so Ron and John, I would say, are more versatile than Engin. Engin's so good in his lane that he's managed to win world championships without having to change that lane. But like John could top roll, post, press, hook, straps. Like people, when they went to go pull him, you just had to be stronger than him and better than him. There was no angle. Like some guys, you see a great top rolls, and you're like, if I could contain him or get him in a hook, but his hook was just as good as his top roll. His straps were just as good as all of it. And then if he got stuck, he would throw that sneaky shoulder on top of you. And Ron was very much akin to that the same way. I mean, he was almost the same thing as John Brzenk. So the versatility, the dominance, the purist when you talk about fundamental arm wrestling, loving fundamental arm wrestling, no bullshit. I pulled John Brzenk a few times, and it's the quickest I've ever gripped up with anybody. I was comfortable with where I was in my hand and my body, and he was too. And we just literally went thumbs, hands, boom. You pull some of these other guys just setting up for a fucking half hour. And I really admired that they took it from a real purist, fundamentally sound standpoint, and they really didn't have any weaknesses in their game. If you were going to bang with them, you had to be adequate everywhere.
Now, when you first got into the sport, what weight class were you competing in?
198.
Okay, and what are you at today?
I'm probably right about 220, but I just started a new regime because I had a little bit of I call it a dirty bulk. It's called I sat around for a few years and drank a ton and just fucking ate whatever I wanted. I mean, I could be down to 205 in a month or so. So my weight class all through WAL, I competed at the 195 weight class.
That's what my next question is. How did you get into WAL?
Well, I got into the WAL because when they came out, they were the biggest thing that we'd ever seen, probably since Over the Top. But when they started throwing some of the monies out there and year after year, and it probably was the biggest, definitely the biggest thing in my history. And just anybody who thought that they could even place was at those tournaments. So through those tournaments, it started off as a tournament series, not super matches. Started off as tournament series, and just through competing, and I always placed very high. I've won a lot of their events, and being kind of a dynamic, layered personality. When they put the Supermatch series together, they're like, well, he's got a little bit of, you never know what's going to happen with him. He's a little unpredictable. He's he can put a sentence together, and he can also arm wrestle well. So when they were trying to put matches together, they threw me in the pit early on. And then as I won, you got to always bring the winner back. And if you keep winning, you keep coming back. But yeah, I mean, any production that's going on and you think you can get in the money, you're there unless there's a death in the family, right?
Now, how many super matches over your time with WAL did you compete in?
I think I had 5 with WAL for the super matches. There was 3. They did 2 years. They did 3 the first year, and then they did 2 the next year, and then COVID swept in.
Who was the top? Who was your hardest competition in WAL?
Oh, my hardest competition in WAL was Todd Hutchings. He moved up to the heavyweights, and I asked for that match, and I think they were going to try to put it in the pipeline before COVID hit, because I wanted to rectify that, because he was a guy that no matter how much I did, people wanted to throw in my face that he won those hammers. But, our record would say that we were very tit for tat. And I felt that I had done a lot of growing, and especially if we met, like I know Todd would lose like 25 pounds to come into WL. He'd be like a 220, 225 guy. I'd be a true 195. And I had some injuries I was battling even too. So it's very hard to pull a guy that's got all side pressure when you have none. I had a lot of shoulder injuries. So as I started getting better and testing out the side pressure again and feeling I was tightening up those angles, and I had so much experience with him, I really wanted to see if I could pull it off in a super match setting. But it never happened. But without a doubt, everybody through the WAL, no matter how they mixed it up, no matter how many badasses were there, 100 guys in a class, it would always come down to me and him. So in the super match series, there were some really good guys, but the competition was Todd.
So what was your last match in WAL? And was that the last big time match you had? And was that because of COVID and all? Is that when you shut down? Because I haven't seen you. I've been in 3 years. And like I said, I only seen you go against Chuck Ryder. But, when was the last big one that you had?
My last big match was, I'd say about 1.5 years ago. I had a match scheduled with the guy, Sasha Andreev, who's a multi-time world champion. Probably at this point in time is, even at a young age, has reached legendary status. And we took the match, and then the match got shut down. They were saying COVID, there's not going to be any Mr. Olympia, there's not going to be anything. And I said, okay. And I kind of just I figured we were isolated and there was nothing going on. And if I don't have a heading, if I don't have a direction or point, I'm like a ship without a rudder, without a destination. I just float out there and get myself in trouble. I'm privy to, when my grandmother used to say, the idle time is the devil's playground. Well, I'm the biggest case of that. I like to fuck off. I like to party. I like to get in trouble. And at the time, I was down with playing video games and doing whatever, and I wasn't arm wrestling. And not for lack of liking it, but everything was shut down, right? During those times, everything was shut down. We didn't have a practice going around here. And then I get the call that says, like, I don't know, very, very short amount of time before the event, you're talking weeks, was like, it's on. And I'm like, what's on? Months ago, I've been sitting around for months now. He says, well, kind of like we were the main event. And I said I would go, and I honored it. And he was a guy that was training very hard they didn't shut down over there. Their team was getting together. They were rocking and rolling. He was in great shape. And I went out there and, he beat me 6-0.
Okay.
It was a tough pill to swallow because I always hate showing my ass when you feel like you've got more. And depending on who you are, like, people will write the narrative for you. If you're not an aggressive, outspoken person, people would have said, like, oh, well, there's a lot of reasons. That's probably a very close match. But because I was undefeated in WAL and I had a YouTube series of telling people what time it was, they were dying to see me lose. So when I lost, it was like, shut the fuck up. No excuses, no reasons. You got handled. So I just said, hey, it's all good. It's not all good. It bothers me, but I mean, I don't lose sleep over it.
Where was that match held?
That was in England.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we were on the phone last week when I was in Florida, and I was kind of just curious to see when you would be coming back into the sport. And you told me that April was the time that you'd be ready and all. So could we expect to come back then for RVJ, a fully 100% RVJ?
Yeah, man, I feel like I'll be in good shape in April. I'm really dialing in for a few things that, if some of these bigger events or bigger things pop off, I might push it to later April, May, just because, if I can get to one of these big events, I'll be more focused for that. The events I got lined up right now are more on the local side, but they're good. They'll bring in a lot of talent because they're doing overall prizes. But if I can get something bigger going, which there are things looming, like early May, but I'm definitely coming out. I'm streamlining. I'm kind of got a program that I'm going to follow, something I've never done. Yesterday was the start of Lent. I'm not a devout Catholic, but my dad always used to do Lent, and in his honor, the wife asked me if I wanted to do Lent. And I was like, obviously, she was going to ask me to give up chocolate. She's like, let's kick the booze for like 2 months. So I'm like, all right. And that'll probably be really good for me because my body really responds if I do the right thing. If I actually have proper nutrition and I'm not boozing every day, I respond really well. So in the next 2 months, I think I can make good ground.
So what are we looking like right now? Like, what's your training entail? Are you hitting table practice once a week? Are you hitting the weights every day?
Yeah. So right now I'm doing table once a week, and I think that's pretty good because I go pretty hard. I think more than that would be hard on the joints, but I do simulate moves at home with bands, springs, angles, and then I'm trying to get back to that. I'm a guy that when I feel strong in the gym, I do see it correlate the table. I do feel the tightness and the overall power. For me, body strong does make a difference on the table. So I'm starting to break up my days of what I'm doing and whatnot, and try to keep track of my gains and my numbers. And I'm trying to do things that I've never done instead of just winging it. I'm trying to make up the ground.
And what weight class? I remember you said you could get down to like 205 or whatever. But what is the range, the weight range that you're willing to stay in?
Well, like 220 would be super easy and comfortable. But my idea would be to, in a perfect world, would be to start like get fit and be like in that 209 and maybe try to make a run at the East first West title if that's possible.
Okay, and do we have any targets in hand? Is there anybody that you want to bring it to? Because I know you guys you had a little drama going on with Ryan Bowen, and I know
Yeah.
Ryan Bowen's putting on some size. He's been messing with the pancakes, letting everybody know about it. I know you guys go back and forth with that, but is there anybody else that you have like a target at, and is Ryan still on that list?
No, Ryan's not on that list. There's been too much drama there. It's like, I've had too much blue balls with that guy. People think that it's me who's bailed out, and that's fine, but this just comes with a lot of attached drama. And he did call me a while back and asked me, he proposed something to come to Canada and pull me in Canada. And when he told me all the details, I was just like, done, let's do it. And then I never heard from him again. Never heard from him. The fucking guy disappeared. I almost put on an APB for the guy. I thought he got taken by the Langoliers. The fucking guy disappeared. And the next thing you know, he's taking a match with Zarab and he's lining up a match with Chance. And it was almost like I was, he felt like he could have sucked off more fame off of those guys or more glory, or I don't know. But I know he made a proposition to me. I said, sounds good. Let me know. Give me a date. Sure. And I never heard from him again. So now it's kind of like, he lost his Rob, and now there's this bullshit with him trying to find a super match. He asked me to go over there. I'm like, I'm not going to Australia with a week notice. It'd take me a fucking 2 days to get there. No, I'm all set with that shit. And I don't like spiders or snakes. And they got the worst spiders and snakes in the world there. So, I mean, you can keep that place. I used to want to go there, but then I realized it's a big desert, I think. So, fuck that shit.
What was your thoughts? He had that match set up with Toddzilla. What was your, because I know you pulled Toddzilla and you got a lot of experience with him. Do you think that would be a close match? I think
he was going to get killed. I couldn't see a lane where he would win that match. We watched the Ryan Bowen delusional series, and it's not that Ryan's not a good arm wrestler. And I mean, I know it's fucking terrible. It's hard for me to say, but he is. And I've always said he's a good arm wrestler. He just punches above his weight class. And that's not just his weight class. He punches above his actual skill level. And, he's on this new strength program, and he's benching more and doing things more. I don't know what it's going to mean for him with arm wrestling. I know, like, for me, it did carry over, but I don't know what it means for him. And I think that he still reverts back to that time Todd went to practice with him in Australia, and he felt something. But Todd was actually like a week or two from like having a heart issue and being hospitalized and dropping like 20 pounds. And then he showed there and went up on like a 2-week training, coaching, seminar, fucking 110 degree in a metal shed tour. And then the camera comes out and he's like getting stuffed by Lachlan and him. And I think that's what they want to remember. I just don't think that, if Todd was remotely ready and he's the guy that we know as Toddzilla, I just couldn't see the lane that it would have happened. I think it would have been another case like what Zarab did. I mean, Ryan got smacked by Coach Ray, and that's not a knock on Coach Ray, but we're talking like there is a very big difference between Coach Ray, who top rolled him, hooked him, did everything, and Todd Hutchings.
The one thing I got to say about that, though, because I was there with him for that, and he was extremely cutting weight. I was in the sauna with him for a good hour and a half, 2 hours the day before, and I mean, he sucked everything out of him. I think he drained himself of all power. So I will defend him on that. I don't think we've seen 100% Ryan Bowen at that match. I really believe he was more like a 60, 70%.
You did see 100% Ryan Bowen. You just saw Ryan Bowen that was lighter and not as pancakey, right? I mean,
yeah, but he did not know how to cut. And me being in fitness world and all, and I kept kind of trying to tell him, and he really wasn't hearing it that day. And I mean, just imagine losing like 15, 20 pounds 2-3 days before, all just sitting in a sauna. I mean, there's no way your strength levels could even be close to where they should be at.
And that could be true, but we do have to be very careful when we start saying things like that, because me, as a rational person, I agree with that. I agree with what you're saying. And I agree that sometimes there's the fine line between like making an excuse and having a valid reason. There's the fine line, because how do you know where to improve or what you did wrong? Or maybe there was something like I cut wrong and that could have taken off 10, 15, 20% of your power. I've read that if you're dehydrated, you can lose 30+% of your power. That's an awful lot of strength. But in the world of the internet and the competitive world, people want to shut that shit down and say no excuses. So a guy like me, when I'll bring up the Sasha match again, I got slapped in the face with no excuses. Now I know what the reality is, but they say no excuses. Fuck you, eat it. So, okay, if that's the case, even if you've got a valid reason, I don't want to hear it anymore. Fuck you. Like, you're a professional athlete. You do this for a living. If you don't have all your boxes checked, including making weight, hey, Mike Tyson went out and banged a bunch of hookers and blew cocaine and got in a ring with Buster Douglas. It goes down in history that he lost. It doesn't matter that 1989 Mike Tyson would have fucking killed that guy. What goes on in the record books is Mike lost. Now, we all know nobody ever puts on any list, get this poor guy. Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson only fought once. Only once. And Buster Douglas knocked him out. But on no list on anywhere in the world by any boxing historians do they rank Buster Douglas over Mike Tyson. Nobody. Because everybody knows what could have and should have been. They looked at those circumstances. So if people were saying, oh, no excuses, then Buster Douglas would be over them. But they go, no, that's not the reality. There was a reason.
I remember that fight, man. Buster Douglas lost his dad. I think it was 2 weeks before. And that sparked a fire under him. He wanted to, really put on a show that day. I was devastated that day when Michael got knocked out. I was Mike Tyson's biggest fan and all that.
Oh, I mean, you got to think the guy was coming in. He was untouchable. And then he started getting tied up with, broads. And, they say he had jet lag and he was out partying. And, all those things are very valid. I mean, I don't know if you've ever tried to go to the gym with even a light hangover. I'm going to tell you what, it's a very different day than when you feel good. And this guy's getting in there with a professional world level fighter. And, but that's the whole thing with the no excuses. You could be a type of person who looks at it, from an intellectual standpoint and figures it out like these boxing historians do. It's how you rank a guy over another guy that's a 1-0 knockout, but they know. So I guess it depends on how you want to look at it. I try to be more reasonable, but yeah, I can understand that Ryan Bowen's size was very different than what we're seeing today. But that is a very big gap. I don't think he made enough ground to do anything with Zarab right now. And I think Zarab and Todd would be tit for tat. Maybe even Todd would beat him. So it's just too much ground to make. And, with Bowen being a full-time professional arm wrestler, he might have hit his physiological cap already.
I agree with that. So the next thing I want to bring up is we've been seeing recently on the internet, you and Devin going back and forth with each other. So I kind of just want to catch everybody up on that whole story. How did that whole little beef start between you two?
Well, yeah. Okay, so I jumped online originally. I was just watching the fix, or I was watching the show, and I didn't really have an intention on getting on. But there's something that's been rubbing me wrong with the internet lately, and it's shaming guys that are losing to other elites. So for instance, I got a lot of shit for losing to Sasha, but Sasha's beaten everyone else in the whole fucking world. He's won the WAF championships. He beat Ongarbayev the last time they pulled, who just beat Brzenk and Michael Todd. He beat Prudnik every single time they've pulled, which we know Prudnik's a bad motherfucker.
That's great.
He's beat all the other top guys that we're talking about with this high esteem. Yet when I lose to him, regardless of the circumstances, I'm supposed to be ashamed of it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I've seen it with it'll happen with Jerry. Certain guys, if Jerry catches an L, he's going to take a lot of shit for it. It doesn't matter if he loses to Hermes or Levon. It's going to be, he'll be a washout. But when other guys that are liked take an L, like Devin, there's always going to be a comeback story, right? It depends on your internet persona.
The one thing I got to say is Jerry didn't even take a loss. He went against Georgie, and he made it too close of a match, and he is hearing so much slack from that. So sometimes you don't even have to take a loss. You're just not that dominant what they feel like
if you don't
should
win
be.
fast enough. If you don't win fast enough, you're a shit bum. You know what I mean? If you get tied up with a guy, you're a shit bum. So I started thinking about it. I'm like, every single guy I've seen walk into this sport has taken L's. All of them. John Brzenk, the GOAT, just took 2 in a row. I mean, not long ago, Devin took a bunch too. That's the joke about him beating Europeans. For some reason, there was a bunch of those going on. I've seen John beat him, and plenty of guys, plenty of all these guys I've seen lose 100 times. So I'm like, when did it become a shame to lose? So that was my message. And then Devin popped into the channel. I don't know if he got on the same time as me right around there. And then he was kind of like, the point kind of like had a direction. The conversation was going in a direction. And I know he's kicking with Leonidas. You know, did they just meet up and they're like best buddies? They have the same hobbies and shit. No, I mean, obviously it's a little bit of a collaboration thing, right? He's trying to find the Larry Wheels, the next guy, kind of known, kind of unknown crossover for arm wrestling. That's cool. I mean, I'd love to swap channels with him. I'd like to have his subscribers. I'd love to have his following. But he just kept interjecting with, you know, Leonidas. And I'm like, we're not fucking talking about Leonidas. We're not talking about this shit. And then he started saying how Leonidas did like 5 workouts right before the tournament. He worked his shoulders out, worked his arms out, did his wrists and everything. And to me, like at some point in time, like promotion goes into like bullshit. And I'm like, I'll check bullshit. Like I'm like the human YouTube, you know, fact check guy. I'm like, no, I'm not buying it. So he was saying, you know, and I also think that's a snub to all the guys he beat. You know, so they say he went to this tournament in Canada and beat everybody. He did it when he worked out for 6 hours before even showing up. And it's like all the best arm wrestlers will take off like a week or more before a tournament, even a local tournament, because they want to keep that resume going. They don't want to get caught by somebody. They're saying this guy showed up, worked out, did buys, hand, wrist, tries, fucking everything, and smoked out everybody. Well, that's kind of spitting in the face of the guys who took that shit serious, right? So now it's like, he's so good, he don't got to take it serious. And I know it's Devin, it's promotion, it's a little trolling, but I was kind of like, I'm not fucking buying it. So he's like, you know, RVJ, he'll turn this phone, he'll whip your ass. And I'm like, I don't think so. He's like, no, but who are you? And nobody knows your left hand. And like I said, I know this trolling, but at some point in time, I'll, like with Chuck Ryder, at some point in time, I'm like, you know, have it. Like, I don't think so. Like, and I'm only going to be told, I'm not going to let people troll me so much until I'm like, all right, then let's make a wager of this. Let's have some fun with this. And then, of course, it, you know, enough poking and enough throwing some mud and shit gets heated.
Now, what happens between you and Leonidas? Is that a match, or are you way too far experienced? I mean, you're in 19 years. You're one of the top guys in your weight class. I don't even know how much that kid Leonidas weighs, but is this a close match at all?
You know what happens is it was really good to cause a stir on YouTube, because it did. Because I'm not on YouTube, I'm not on Facebook or anything. But I had a lot of people reach out to me about that and all that. And I know that people tell me the internet was kind of burning up. And it's like Devin's pulled the Don King there. He did like there's no such thing as bad press. And I think it was really good for the moment, because he caught me in a moment when, you know, I was capable of being poked and getting hot under the collar. And it was like a mission accomplished. And I believe if either one of them really believed he'd be able to beat me, they'd be here to try to collect that money. But I haven't heard anything about a match from either one. And I'm not a fucking bully. I know the guy's basically an amateur, albeit maybe very, very strong. And, you know, maybe he has some potential to do whatever. But when I feel somebody retract and not push the issue, I don't keep going in for it. I kind of know, I can kind of sense that it's never been brought up again.
So let me ask you this right now, RVJ. I put up $5,000 for Leonidas to come over to your house to arm wrestle. Can we make this happen?
Yeah. I mean, you don't got to come to my house. We could put it somewhere in a respectable joint. I live in a nice place, but you know, we could do it. Yeah. I mean, I'm an arm wrestler. I'm down for that.
The reason why I said that is because Devin was saying he was going to come to your front door, and you were saying, let's go and do this. So how about that place that you did it with Chuck Ryder? You know, that's your I think
that's where I train.
Okay, so I'm putting that out there right now. Italia Arm Wrestling Promotions is willing to put up $5,000 So Devin, Leonidas, if you hear this, let's make this happen. When can we make this happen? We do this in March?
Yeah, we can do this in March as long as I'm not Leonidas. I'm 42 years old, and I don't do workouts before I go to tournaments. If I had a slight notice, I don't need 6 weeks. I'm strong 365, but at least enough that I didn't like go to practice on Wednesday and you're coming to my house Thursday morning when my elbows are banged. Just give me a week.
Okay, so we said it right now. We got a week's notice. We can make this happen whenever you guys want to come down, cross over the border, come over. What area you are in again? Massachusetts?
I'm in Massachusetts.
All right, guys. So I'm putting it out there. Let's see if we can make something like this happen. Now, what is the weight difference between you guys right now? Do you have any idea what Leonidas walks around? I mean, that dude looks jacked as all hell, man.
No, I'm guessing he's probably like, maybe like a 240, 50, 60 guy.
Okay.
That don't bother me though, because I'm all upper body, and I would think that I'm probably taller and long. I'd be willing to wager I have a bigger skeleton than him.
Okay, and there's no stipulations or anything. Doesn't matter if he's on PEDs or anything. You're down to
no. Listen, I've gone on PEDs with one guy. Now I do have my opinion of it in the sport and the direction of it and how it's kind of like really unhinged right now with guys like some of the top guys. It's just there's no restrictors. It's fucking crazy. But I understand, like, I've gone to tournaments knowing that that's pretty much everybody at the top is not even the top guys trying to get into the state scene, the local scene. Now it's everywhere. And it's like one of those things when you break into it, you see it's everywhere. But I tried to bust Ryan Bowen's balls because I just wanted to get him as a weak, skinny little guy that day so I could embarrass him. But other than that, I know that it's real, and I have no illusions that a guy who lives in the fitness industry and is a bodybuilder would ever try to be natural, nor do I think that he's natural. So no, that's fine.
Now, would you ever get on PEDs? Because you said times are changing. I mean, it seems like all the top level guys are doing that. So say you get on one of these top organizations or whatever, is that something you would willing to go, and especially if the money's right?
It's something I fantasize about. I think a lot would have to change, and I think I'd have to exhaust my natural potential first. I've done so long stunting myself with my lifestyle and lack of a proper routine that I don't really know what I can do. I know that I've hovered at the top and at times been at the top with doing a lot of the wrong things. So I just want to see where I get to naturally. And then if I was ever in a real dire situation, health, and it was my only option, I could look at it that way. But to say, would I ever jump on PEDs solely for performance enhancing? I'm not at that point yet. And by the time I get to that point, I'd probably be fighting the fucking clock anyways. I think that I've made this mission my mission for too long to go back on it now.
What do you consider in the last 5 years? Have you seen a big change with the PEDs and it evolving where more people are on it, or were they always on it?
Oh, I think that they were always on it. I do, but I think there was different levels of how far people were willing to go. And I think with a little more money, a little more exposure, I think the internet really fanned those flames. When people, it's amazing what people do for some likes and a growing channel and stuff like that. Consider that back in the day when I got into the sport, 2004 was the epic Zloty tournament that kicked off Zloty tournaments. And the big to-do over in Europe was Alexei Vovoda. He was the most dominant guy in Europe, and he wanted to revenge a loss. He took the Travis Bagent in 2003. He gained some weight. He put on some size, and he was massive, but he was probably somewhere between like 260, 280. And he grew from probably like a 220, 240 guy. And all those guys were doing it. You had Alexei Samarenko, you got Taras Ivankins, everyone over there is juice. But your best guys in the whole fucking world back then were somewhere between that 220, and the outliers like, Travis and Matt Gerdner and Alexei were probably like 260. Maybe they got a little higher. But now it seems like everybody in the top 10 is like 300, 320, 330. And you get guys like Levon. Levon's bone structure naturally is smaller than mine. He's a smaller man than me naturally. He was a 170-pound guy. I mean, I just got a picture the other day somebody sent to me of Irakli pulling in the 154 class in Worlds as a man. And now he's what, 230? You're talking 50% tissue and muscle and bone. I mean, that's like me if I'm 220 gaining 110 pounds. That's like me being 330 out of nowhere. I'm going to tell you, it is a big difference. And I could list a laundry list of guys that you wouldn't believe were well under. Fucking Vitaly was ranked in the 209 weight class not long ago. 209. So do I think it's worse? I think what happens is the more it's unchecked, and then this guy sets the bar over here, they find out what it is or figure out what they got to do to step it up. And then they step it up and then they keep chasing. So what used to be the bar is now probably entry level shit.
That's the same thing in the bodybuilding world too,
100%, right? The more you can do, the bigger you can get. Ronnie Coleman is very different than Steve Reeves.
Yeah. Totally agree with that. Totally agree. So I wanted to ask you, did you get to see this past weekend's matches go down in Canada with Matt Mask and Yordan Sonov?
I didn't get to see it. On the weekends are tough sometimes, depending on my schedule with my kids, but I did get the Cliff Note version of it.
What was your thoughts on that? Were you surprised at all hearing that Yordan Sonov was so dominant? He had 2 wins. He had one against Mike Gold, a left arm, and he swept him dominantly. And then he went against Matt Mask and same thing, swept him. And I think a lot of the people out here in the United States were pretty shocked by it. I wasn't so much shocked just because I know where Yordan Sonov comes from. He trains with the Bulgarians. He's Krasimir Konstantino's training partner. And I've been hearing great things about him. I've seen him in East versus West and all. So, I was a little disappointed because, I thought Matt was going to come back and really, show us what he got and, possibly get a win. But then to see the way Yordan was that day, I was like, wow, that kid Yordan. What is your thoughts on this kid Yordan Sonov?
So the whole thing with Matt Mask is a 2-part thing. I think that we'll talk about Yordan, and I know a bit about him, but losing to him is zero shame. Yeah. Zero shame. I think that Matt is still an elite guy. He's losing to other elite guys, but it is kind of a slippery slope because where people have such a regard for Devin, they put him up there where they think even now this form of Devin is going to go be Levon, and they get caught up in his training videos and, he's a magnetic person and people love him, and maybe he is there. And then Devin has a kinship with Matt. They YouTube together, they kick it together there. He calls him his little brother. And I think when it maybe Devin really believes it because Matt's style is problematic for Devin, and maybe he feels more problems from Matt than he does all these guys who are beating him, just stylistically. But I do think that that Devin turns up the volume a little bit, which in turn gives his buddy, keeps him in the mix, even if he keeps losing. It's like, oh, Matt right now is going to kill everybody. Now, whether that's what Devin really feels, or he's trying to throw his buddy a bone so he can collect a paycheck, get back in the limelight and whatnot. I don't know what that is, but I think there's a little bit of both. And to move on to Yordan, no, because I just thought he was going to be flat out stronger than Matt. And even if he got the hand to go flat, there's no mystery that every single person in that training camp in Bulgaria, they're lightweight guys, they're heavyweight guys, they're middleweight guys, they're all world champs. And when you are in that kind of a mix, it's, the birds of a feather flock together. If you hang around and all your friends are thugs and they're all selling drugs and they're all carrying guns, I fucking promise you're going to get caught up in a hairy situation someday. You are going to be one of those dudes at some point in time, So those guys by nature or nurture or whatever, they're finding the recipe, and he's one of the top dicks in Bulgaria. He's a 220-pound guy that's killed it at Zloty, killed it at A1, killed it at WAF many times. And it's not that I have that Euros are better than us, but their programming is better than us. They are arm wrestlers, and that's what they do. We are fucking everything else, and then we try our best to be arm wrestlers. You know what I mean? We're like,
our guys have full-time jobs, and this is kind of like a hobby to them, where over there, their full-time job is arm wrestling.
Right. And I mean, you can pull those wins off against those guys. Jordan was the guy that I was supposed to get set up with at one point in time. And, you know, I'm not surprised based on the guys that have given Matt trouble. I'm not surprised by the result. And for reasons, like I said, I do think that if you go by like what Devin says, Devin's great and he's got a great knowledge and insight to the sport, but he's also a horrible predictor at who's going to win and kill who and beat who. He also said that Matt was going to not just beat Todd Hutchings, he was going to like basically blow him off the stage and retire him. And Matt didn't even come close to getting a pin. I mean, he flattened him and got him here, but once Todd stopped it, he surged like one surge. And I think that Matt has a problem with good sticky arms.
What happens between a match between you and Jordan Sonoff? You know, I'm talking about when you're 100%. I'm talking like round May.
Yeah, if I'm in good shape, I think I'm in that match for sure. I think that that's a match stylistically. I'm a person that if I believe I'm in shape, I feel I'm in and can win any match that's put at me. And that's not being foolhardy. It's because I've pulled with the best guys that the world's produced, with the exception of some of the Europeans. I've pulled when Dave Chafee was on the top. I've gone down and practiced and pulled with Jerry and Tim Brzenk when Tim was the Tim who beat John Brzenk. I've pulled these guys in competitive environments, you know, Travis and Todd Hutchings and all these guys in different weight classes. So I don't think I would feel anything that would shock me. I'd feel a complete good puller, but I believe that it's a match that I could win.
Also have this match. What happens between you and Monster Michael Todd today? Monster Michael Todd coming in that 230 weight class. Is that a match right there between you two?
I'd be happy to give it the old college try. I think that I think I'd possess a lot of tools that would be problematic for him. And I know that he's got, you know, some unique angles and ways of pulling. I think if he's lighter in weight and he's in my weight class, I like that match.
Now, what do you feel about the way that he's been performing lately? You know, he's coming off a few losses and all. And I know you were talking about other athletes in that same trajectory, but, you know, people are saying on the internet, oh, he's done. He's not on that elite level. What's your feeling on that with Monster Michael Todd?
I mean, that's a silly thing because he was definitely one of the guys I was talking about. He loses to Devin, and that's a guy that people think is number one. He loses to fucking Ongarbayev, who just beat John Brzenk, and no one's telling John Brzenk to go hide under a rock. He loses to Hermes. He didn't lose to Hermes, did he?
I don't believe they pulled.
He lost to Gennady, though, who's also a top of the heap guy.
Guy's a
but
monster.
I mean, he got down in weight. He got to a weight that I didn't think he would ever make. He's losing to guys that are on the very elite list. You know, it's like if we rewind it to boxing, we look at a guy like Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier's on the all-time great boxing list of ever. But he lost to Muhammad Ali. He got a win against Muhammad Ali, but he got the losing record. He lost to George Foreman. You can find some guys that, you know, but he's still one of the all-time very greatest that ever to do it. I mean, they've all taken losses. Muhammad Ali, they got his number one, and he's lost matches to Ken Norton, Joe Frazier, and Larry Holmes, and who knows, right? So losses are, you got to be touch and go with them, depending on, you know, I don't think losing to the number one guy at 230 when you're 230 is a shame at all. And I think that's just a lot of internet people. A lot of these guys are couch fucking cowboys. A lot of the internet is those same motherfuckers you go to a sports bar and they got some guy sitting there with a gut hanging over his balls talking about how that guy who runs a 4.240 should have caught that ball. And that fucking guy couldn't even get off his stool and get to the urinal in 2 minutes without pissing his fucking pants. And he's talking about how some professional athlete should be performing. And that's basically what 99% of the internet is. Because you don't hear John Brzenk saying fucking Michael Todd should lose. He probably called him up and was like, yeah, that fucking kid's pretty good, huh? You know what I mean? They probably had a self-help seminar together about Ongarbayev. But I mean, you can't shame one guy for doing one thing and then parade another guy for doing the exact same thing. That's just horrible bias. I mean, I don't know what Michael Todd's direction is. I know his psyche might be hurt a little bit. Maybe it's not, but I don't think he's done. I think it will still take an elite guy to beat him.
Do we think there's going to be somebody? I put that $1,000 bounty out for Monster after he turned down my my 10K match with him and Devin. You think there's going to be somebody that comes and shows up at one of these local tournaments is going to get that pin and win that $1,000 anytime soon?
I think with that bounty out there, it makes it more appetizing. I mean, I imagine for him to get those 100 trophies, he's got to get very active very soon. He's got to start collecting them because the year's ticking by, and he needed to hit about 4 first places every other week for the whole year, if my math is right. There's 52 weeks in a year, so if you split in half, just call it an even 25 times 4 first places. And I don't know how many he's won thus far, but he needs to get the step in. And when I saw that video, be a competitive person, I was like, if I get to a tournament, I see Michael Todd, I'm jumping in his class. I'm jumping in. I would like a match because I think I possess a lot of problems for where he has holes.
That's what I was about to say. So Say Monster now post up that he's going to be in your area at the local tournament. We could expect to see RVJ showing up there.
Yeah. I mean, because let's be honest. I mean, I've pulled matches back in the day just for help a promoter out and stuff. And I'm kind of like, my work situation kind of went upside down this year. So if I could make some cheddar arm wrestling, I'd be a fool to not try.
Italia Arm Wrestling's promotions would love to write a check for you for $1,000. So you're feeling frisky, go find him, brother.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not going to chase him down to Arkansas, but if he comes within a reasonable distance, I'm happy to try it.
I love it. So I just want to finish off on this last topic. We got East versus West, number 7. I just picked 4 of my favorite matches that I've seen, and I just want to get your thoughts and your predictions on this.
Okay.
The first match would be Armgabayev versus Todd Hutchins. I always bring up Todd Hutchins with you because I know you have a lot of experience with him.
Yeah, Todd is a very unique guy. The way he pulls, he gives a lot of those top roll specific guys trouble. I think you need to have a lot of arm, a lot of shoulder. Armgabayev is a great athlete, but I imagine Todd would do the same thing to him. Todd could do things that John can't do. And part of that is, John's shoulder, and part of that is the way Todd molded his style. Now, John would beat Todd, but Todd will beat guys that John hasn't or can't. For instance, Todd went through Irakli pretty convincingly. And I do think that he would do the same thing to Armgabayev. That angle that John needed, well, we saw match 1 with Armgabayev, how when John tucked him, he really went through him. So Armgabayev's arm strength in certain angles, it's really good. I don't know if it's great on that level. And I think Todd will be able to drive a lot harder with a guy like Armgabayev than John was able to once it got stopped and flattened. I think it would look a lot like the Irakli match. But I did hear through the pipeline that it's probably not going to happen because his injury recently.
Wow, I got to find out about that. I thought it wasn't that serious, but I guess it was, it's messing up with his training and all, so he's not going to be able to train up, I guess.
Yeah. But I actually would pick Todd in that one.
Okay. Now, the next match I want to bring up is Dave Chafee versus Rivas from Georgia. What do you think on that? This kid Rivas, man, he's strong. And when I met him in person, I couldn't get over how big he is. When you see him on film and all, he doesn't look as big. But when you see him in person, this guy is a monster.
He's the guy who comes forward, though, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He comes at you. I don't think anybody's going to fare really well that doesn't take a real fundamental and even if you're really strong, if you don't really respect Dave Chafee for who and what he is and take a really fundamental approach, even Levon took a very fundamental approach with him. And, Dave at that time was very kind of like, in that match with Levon, Dave looked like he was trying to slim down for a wedding or something. He looked lighter. He looked smaller. He looked like that bear that Dave has been. And he's been looking better each time we've seen him. We just got a win against Italia, who I don't think anybody really thought was going to win that match. And Italia was seen as number 2, maybe even number 1. I think somebody who comes forward and gives some leverage to Dave, not just comes into him, he kind of gives away something coming to him. I think it's going to be a real big problem. It's going to be an eye opener for people again. So I'm picking Dave in that one. Pretty convincing.
Now, if Rivas stops him at all and it goes into an endurance game, you think that changes the outcome at all?
Yeah, but he'd have to be very, 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 very strong to stop that drive. If you remember, it did come into an endurance game with Morozov, but I mean, Dave, when it's hit that stop, it didn't even really stop the first 2, and that wasn't because Dave's so fast and so elusive. He just fucking powered through it. Do I know it? Do I think that guy is as strong as Morozov in those areas to hold that shit off? I think he's more offensively driven, and maybe he can wedge in there. Dave's endurance is not the best, but you've got to hold him long enough to make the endurance a problem. It's like I always like to go back to combat sports because they're so in line with arm wrestling. This is a combat sport. People who think if they get Mike Tyson to deep water, they can drag him out and make him tired. Well, yeah, if you could wither all those fucking 150 punches he's throwing around, yeah. Sure, that's a great plan on paper. But what happens when you got that guy throwing a punch every second, trying to kill you? So that's kind of the same thing. It's like it's a great plan. Like if I could just stop him, but therein lies the puzzle, right?
And I'd say Dave is probably the strongest guy in North America. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say that. I mean, at least the Dave that I remember, the guy who was winning WAL, the guy that was thick and, heavy, I'd say that's a very fair statement.
So you would like to see Dave maybe come in 10, 20 pounds heavier than his last match. That'd make you feel a lot better.
I mean, I don't like to tell people to do things that might be, pushing their health. And I'm sure there's a reason that he was lighter and leaner. He seems to be performing good. Who knows what's going on in people's life with little injuries, health, whatever. But the Dave that was throwing Cyplenkov in his prime for a layup and beating Pushkar and stuff, I think he's in that match comfortably.
Okay. Now, the next match I want to talk about, this one excites me. It's Devin Larratt versus Gennady. What do you expect on this? Because we know that Gennady comes in with that extreme fast hit, and I mean, he comes in like an animal. Do you think it's going to present a problem for Devin, or do you think Devin's going to be able to go right through him?
I could see Gennady being a problem in round 1, maybe round 2, and I think it'll go very much like when I think Gennady beat Hermes, and I think the way he pulled Michael Todd, it would look like that. I think he might get the high hand control and maybe get that sneaky, strong, really side pressure pin down once he has a little bit of height, and maybe they're both a little bit flattened in the straps and he kind of pushes down. Maybe that surge from the shoulder press. But Devin's become, for a long time now, so good in the straps and in the pronation, and guys eventually die on that bottom end. And if you give that guy any control, he's an evil, sadistic person. Like he won't pin you because he knows the advantage he has. He's going to put your integrity in check. He's going to put your mom's watching and you're going to do her bad by quitting like that check. And he's going to hold you, and he's going to make you will die on that table. And then every match from there is sailing. And he's so good at that low, like you can't tuck that pronation. And I've seen Gennady's wrist crack, but he's so powerful, he can kind of push down on people. And I think Devin's going to get his wrist. And at this point in time, his arm looks like it's really together. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm picking Devin to win it. I think he could very easily sweep it, but I'm giving Gennady the credit for being fast and capable of that control and sneaky press to get his hand low for 1 or 2.
Okay. I got to throw in this. Devin's been receiving these stem cells. He's been working with this company, Vitacell, who I'm also in touch with. And I got Devin coming on in the next couple of days on my channel. He's going to give his whole experience on everything that's been going on from the stem cell therapy. But I think we're about to see a completely new Devin. I mean, this guy is just, it looks like he's getting younger and more powerful, and it's kind of crazy. But I have a real strong feeling a lot of it's coming from this stem cell therapy. And, with private talks with him, that's kind of what he's been telling me.
Yeah, you know what? I messaged him about it and asked him how much was promotion and how much was real. And the feedback I got from him was that it was miraculous. And to be honest, I don't consider, because it's not, stem cells is not a performance enhancing drug or procedure or anything. It's a natural healing. And if it's something that you can live day to day better and healthier and rewind the hands of time via that, that's an avenue I would absolutely explore if it was something I could afford right now. I mean, before my shoulders got hurt, I was the guy that was beating the top super heavyweights in North America. So, my shoulders, I should have got surgery on, and they've come back periodically, but even still after hard training, I feel it. I had a ton of side pressure and I was really complete. And I caught an injury. It's been years and years and years. So I was like, I would look into the stem cells if it was something I could pimp the money for. I think it would make me, that if what Devin's telling me is true, I think that I could, if it worked for me the way he's saying, I could be at the top of the food chain if the cheddar was there.
Well, put it like this. You could pay attention to my channel. I'm actually going to get the treatment in the next 2 weeks. I'm going to be flying out to Las Vegas to the clinic out there. And I got 2 surgeries on my arms, popped both bicep tendons, arm wrestling and everything. And so I get a lot of tendonitis. I was just at a big practice in Florida. 50, 60 guys were over there pulling everybody. Well, I jumped on a plane. And when I got on that plane, anything, if you got any kind of injury, any kind of inflammation, it just tenfolds. I got off that plane. I went to grab my luggage, seen some stars. So, I contacted my friends over at Vitacell. He's like, I'll hook you up, go over to Vegas, and I'm going to document the whole thing just to show the whole arm wrestling community. I'm going to keep everybody up to date as I go through the whole process, and I'm going to let you know my own experience. But I also have a bunch of guys coming on. I got Devin Larratt, John Brzenk, Ron Bath, Dan Mosier, Mike Gold. They're all been getting this treatment, and they're going to be just explaining their own individual experiences and all. So we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to really learn what it helps. And yeah, I'm very excited to just kind of inform the whole community about that. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Maybe it's something that you'd be interested in. You were saying you had some shoulder issues, and I'll keep you up to date myself.
Yeah, I'm very interested. And I mean, that's very, the science behind it. It's very, very interesting. It's, you hear all these different things about price points and stuff like that. So whatever you got out there, I'll be watching for sure.
Sounds good. So the last match that I want to touch on, this one, I got a lot of personal interest in this one. My man, Jerry Cadorette, he's going to be pulling Hermes Gasparini. So I want to get your thoughts on this. I know we touched on it earlier, but what's your predictions? How do you think this outcome is?
Jerry can do it. I don't think Hermes has the shoulder to beat Jerry in the way that it's problematic for Jerry. And there's only a few guys that can anyways. I look at the people that Jerry's pulled, like when Travis was really on top, in my opinion, and people will talk that shit. I know. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But in my opinion, the best version of Travis that we see, that I became a fan of and friends with, I think was better than Hermes, even the one we're seeing now, in my opinion, right? But Travis was not for the same reasons, but he was privy to the same kind of path I walked. Once he kind of got to a certain point, he kind of fall off and then have to get motivated and fall back on. Mine wasn't for the same reasons his was, but I don't really know someone's reasons deep down inside. But we all know that a lot of things people say about me, I know that they said about Travis as well, which was like, well, what version of Travis is going to show up? And the Travis that would show up if he was really motivated and whatnot, I think would be Hermes and Denis. I think stylistically would be a nightmare for someone like that. And Devin, when Travis was that guy, Jerry, when Travis was that guy, I was in the front row. I went down to Connecticut to see it, the $10,000 match, the OG super match. And I was there. I was brand new to arm wrestling. I was fucking excited. I was everywhere. And I was right the fuck there in the front. And I watched that Jerry and Travis match, and Jerry pulled it off. And I was with Jerry on my 30th birthday in Venice Beach when he did the same thing with John Brzenk. So Jerry's been really good at doing things that he's not supposed to do. So at this point in time, I mean, Jerry's a big boy. I've been out to eat with Jerry. I've kicked it with Jerry. And if you told me that he could be in a match for 7 minutes the way he was, I was 110%. My wife is works in a nurse. She's a nurse. She travels around different hospitals. She's a specialist and all this shit. I was like putting her on deck. Like, you're going to have to give her buddy boy CPR. Like, I was like, there's no fucking way this guy can go 7 minutes and then get back on a table. You know what I mean? He's a big fucking cat, and he was red and he was sweating, but he did it again and again and a fucking again. He's just the guy that keeps doing things that people say he shouldn't do. I heard through the pipeline that Georgie was going to fucking kill him. And he didn't just beat Georgie. In one of the matches, he dad moved the motherfucker. Yeah. He grabbed him around his forearm. Yeah. I mean, of course, a lot of it's, you know, his elbow and conditioning, whatever it is. The angle he takes on people, he just keeps doing it. And I think Hermes could do it if he threw his shoulder on top of it early enough. But I think he's going to get thrown off balance too fast. Because people don't realize big boy Jerry is actually very fast. Super. He's very fast. So you need to get him, you know, in the center and with your shoulder on top of his hand with a top position. But everybody feels safe backing up like this on their forearm. And then you're fighting when he gets that big wide frame behind it. Now you're fighting that and you're trying to do it with a brachialis and a bicep. And people will hang it.
Usually pops.
Yeah, what they need to do to him, what you need to do to Jerry to beat Jerry, I don't think Hermes has the toolbox.
Yeah. So a lot of guys don't know is when you pull Jerry, it's not fun. It hurts. And like you said, if you go back at all and you're on that bicep, he's popping a lot of these guys' biceps. I mean, they don't like to say it in the public or whatever. You know, I hear actually what happens to them after. And then the other thing that happens is when he's on your bicep and he's hanging and you do any kind of side pressure, most of the time you're blowing out your pec. And he did that both guys. He did that to Gennady. He did that to Georgie. A lot of people don't know that, you know. But
no, it doesn't surprise me at all. I've been watching Jerry. Jerry was in a little bit of a layoff when I came in the sport, but probably about 2 years after he came back. And, you know, Jerry's been Jerry this whole time. And I actually just talked to him the other day, and I'm setting up. I'm excited that he's going to be pulling, because the problem is when Jerry's not pulling, he'd show up to practice sporadically. You might not get him for a couple months, and then he shows up, and then he tells you he's going to show up, and then he doesn't. He's, you know, but now whereas I just called him the other day, I'm only at where he trains like a little more than an hour. I was like, "Are you back training?" He's like, "Yeah. What about you?" So him and I are going to get together because we're both in the same position. We got good guys around us, but we need to do what like these Bulgarians and Russians are doing, which is getting the best guys. Yeah. So I need someone. He needs somebody that's going to put him in the lane like Hermes would, and with my hand and wrist and, you know, general power, I can try to emulate those lanes, and he can just give me that raw torque. Where if I'm doing, you know, things with that, I don't think I'm going to be getting from somebody near my weight class. He's going to be giving me more torque than those guys that are creeping sub 250. You know, so it's great. We'll be great together, and I look forward to it. But right now, I mean, how can you bet against the fucking guy? He's the Rocky Balboa of the sport right now.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, before with the Georgie match, you know, he was coming off of that injury with his shoulder. We went to Maryland to Dave Morocco's practice, and he hurt his shoulder. And I seen it that day. You know, he wasn't the normal Jerry. And he was still willing to take that Hermes match and everything. But Engen didn't feel like if it would be right, you know. So he was like, you're going to drop this one, waited for the Georgie match. But now a lot of people don't understand is he didn't lift no weights for Georgie, but he was practicing every week on the table. He just wasn't able to do the benching that he relies on so much and all. So now he has me hitting him up all the time, every day. He's supposed to be at practice. I'm hitting up the guys at practice. I'm hitting up Jimmy and all them and making sure, hey, is he there? Is he training? I'm on top of him. We got him on a program. His wife, Kate, is on top of him too. She's making sure that when he comes home from his hard days at work and everything, right to the garage, hit that gym. They don't let him hang out anymore. So,
and people want to say it's how he pulls. They don't like the way he pulls. And that's just because he's a refuse to quit guy. So when you see somebody like Travis, who is very calculated, he wanted to get those starts and get nice, easy kills. He didn't usually grind. Jerry will come at you, he'll fight you, but they don't realize that people think that, oh, you take his hand and all he's got is a flat wrist. I tell people, I'm like, you're going to see if you throw him in a fucking hook. You're going to see. They don't realize that guy, how wide he is, and he's benching, what, 5, 6? I don't know what he benches.
Bro, he got down. It was 405. I was hanging out with him, and he just jumps right down. He's in his flip-flops and everything. Starts hitting 405 30-something times. Then jumps up on this pull-up bar, but it's not a bar. He's got a wood plank, and he grabs on the sides. Bro, he's busting like 20, 25 of these, and you're looking, and you're like, dude, this guy's 330 pounds. How are you moving like this? He's a genetic freak, bro. You know what I mean? That's the only thing
I remember telling people, like, I had a conversation with Matt Mask. So when Matt was running hot, and Matt was beating everybody in the WAL, and he was doing good. I consider Matt Mask a friend, but I've known Jerry a long time, and he's a friend. But I was equal with both of them as far as talking about the match. I didn't show favoritism. So Jerry, I knew Jerry was going to have his plan, and I went to Matt and I says, hey, what's your plan with Jerry? And he's like, oh, man, my hand's so strong right now. I'm just going to fucking bust him and run him over. And I was like, no, you're not. That's a bad move. I was like, you got to get that shoulder in there. He's like, oh, man, you don't understand. You'll see. I was like, no, you're going to see. And then in one of those matches, like, it went like, kind of got his hand and Jerry's like, whoa, and almost broke his shit up. Like, same thing with when people think that, like, he doesn't have an arm or a hook. When he pulled Todd Hutchings, who people have so much respect for that side pressure and power, they both kind of hit that inside shoulder, and Jerry just drove straight down on him, which is something very few people have done. I've seen him beat Richard Lupke's in a hook when Richard Lupke's was really strong. So it's like, they don't realize how body strong he is, like, as a human being, how strong he is. So he falls in those lanes because people are actually petrified to feel the other ones. They're too afraid to try the other ones.
And what people don't understand is when you go to practice with Jerry, he never does the press on anybody because there's nobody there that's going to withstand it. Now, if you showed up or whatever, he's going to use the press. It's only like the elite top that could handle something.
I like him to do it to me because he gives me more down pressure than I would feel from another guy. So if I was to go pull somebody at East versus West, I'm going to be knocking on Jerry's door almost every week. Because that level of down pressure is big, and as strong as he is and as proficient as he is, I don't care if it's like when you're trying to break a plateau in lifting, you do negatives, right? You fucking pull those negatives to break that plateau. He's the guy that if you can hold him for a second, that's good. Next time you come, you might hold for 3. You get to the point when you can hold him and work with him, especially if you're weight class restricted, you're doing really good. You're doing really, really good. Yeah, I got a lot of respect for him, and I just, people can bitch about his style, but they also got a choice to try something else. I like his style because he refuses to quit. I don't equate his style with the King's move. I think the King's move is evasive. It's almost like forfeit arm wrestling. People argue that it has its place, but I think when you got a guy who's coming at you and coming forward and his shoulders tall, he's not trying to evade shit. He's coming. He's saying, come at me, bro. And I don't think that what he does is anything other than full commitment.
testing your frame. That's kind of what it is, where, you know, the
Oh,
King's
yeah.
move is you're kind of in desperation. This is the last resort kind of move, you know, where that press, bro, you know, I feel like it's very offensive, and, you know, that's what he's trying to do. But the other move that Eddie loves is, like you said, he loves the hook, you know, and Gennady found that out round 3 with his match. Gennady turned into the hook, and Jerry just went right through him like he wasn't there. And we all know Gennady's got a pretty strong hook. So, you know.
Yeah, like Jerry's hook is it's top of the world. It's there's only a few guys that would, you know, that would be able to fuck with it. And I don't really even know who they would be. You know, maybe Dave.
Let me ask you this though. You know, Devin called out Jerry, you know, and you know, Jerry's been hearing a lot of slack, you know, saying that he's avoiding him and everything. But when you put yourself in Jerry's situation, he's lined up for number 1 right now. He's got Hermes next. He wins that. Or if Hermes beats Levon this weekend, you know, he could be going for number 1 at East versus West. But let's just say Levon gets the win. Jerry beats Hermes. He's next in line for Levon. So I kind of understand him not taking the match with Devin as of right now, you know, because if he does suffer a loss, you know, it's obviously going to take him off the path of number 1. But let's say that this match does happen. I could arrange this to go down. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think Devin still has what it takes to beat Jerry? Because we know that he got the win back in the day
Well,
in WAL.
If I'm being honest, I was in person for that match with Devin and Jerry, and I think that there was a little bit of fuckery there. I mean, I do think that match was incredibly close, and I do think on a different day it could have gone a different way. So if we're fast forwarding, we're saying that, like, we're seeing Devin, you know, healthy, strong, whatnot, bigger. So it would seem like it would be lopsided, but we're also seeing, as you're saying, Jerry's more motivated. He's training. He's taking things a little more seriously. So if they were like this, you know, at WAL, and, you know, with some, maybe even with different calls, different setups, different ref, it could go one way or the other. It could flip very easy. To say that they weren't perfectly equal there is foolish. And then if they both went up, Devin went up and Jerry went up, well, there's no reason that it couldn't be the same type of match. I think that the thing is like, Devin got stem cells. He's had some bicep issues. The same thing that I said with Gennady being able to pull off the win against Devin, I think with the problem be Gennady's like shoulder press coming forward. I think Jerry's a little bit of an exaggerated version, and he's the best presser in the world. Jerry's the best presser in the world. So if you are even a little bit susceptible to that move, which almost everybody is, he's going to be a big problem for you. And now that's not me making a prediction. I just think that people thinking that he's not in it. Now, I know that Devin has a plan for pulling Jerry, and with his confidence in the angle, I think it could be problematic, but that's if he hits it, because Jerry's very fast.
I agree with that. You know, it could go either way. Who's going to be the better man that day? But for people that on the internet, what you hear is that it's not even close. You know, that's just out of their mind, because I know anybody that's pulled Jerry, they don't agree with that. They say just like you were saying right there.
Well, and the funny thing is that people don't realize about matches is you could kill someone 6-0 or get killed 6-0. It doesn't mean it wasn't a close match. It doesn't mean that it wasn't a worthy match to put on. It just means that sometimes that day, that setup, little fucking things that add up to 0.5% here, a little bit there. You could go to start and this guy hits you and pops your wrist, and now on your next start, your wrist is like feeling a little bit wobbly because you got that hard negative. You know, there are times that matches, how do you take we'll say, Todd Hutchings and Zoloev had a match years back in Las Vegas, and Todd blew him out of the water, or so it looked. Zoloev couldn't really do much with him, but we don't know how close it really was. All we see is result. Todd beat him 6-0. Yeah. The next time they had a match, Zoloev beat him 6-0.
Yep.
Think about how flip-floppy that is. When you only see numbers, you go, oh, you lost 6-0. On that day, it could have been 100-0 if they pulled 100 times. Yep. So the number is really an exaggeration of the truth. It's a way of supporting, oh, he won 6-0. But on the little nuances that could flip-flop, Todd beat him 6-0 the next time they pulled, and Todd was even stronger the next time they pulled, but so is Zoloev. Zoloev beat him 6-0. So it's kind of like people see only results and they think that was a stupid fucking match. You could lose 6-0 and be right fucking there.
I totally agree with that. Well, I want to thank you, RVJ, for coming on, brother. Before we call it a night, is there anything you'd like to say, anything you'd like to put out there? And I just want to reiterate one more time. So we have put out a challenge, Italia Arm Wrestling Promotions, putting $5,000 up. If Leonidas and Devin want to come through, and this is for a match between Leonidas and RVJ, we can make this happen. It's going to go down in Massachusetts. So let's get that out there to the universe, and let's see what happens. And we'll see what the answer back
like
is.
I said, just give me the respect. I'm not one of these guys that trades like them. I'm trying to get on a program a little bit because I've got hopes and dreams and aspirations. So just give me a week notice and I'm good with it. Don't show up at my house tonight saying you want that money. Don't take a flight here right away. Give me a hot minute. But yeah, I'll pull the guy. I mean, by all means, he's Devin's protege. He's supposed to be a freak. He's bigger than me. He's heavier than me. He's pancaked and everything. So at least just give me a little time to get my excuses ready. That's all I need.
Well, I got a lot of respect for that, bro, because just to say 1 week, that's a gangster move right there. Because most people, they'd be like, oh, yeah, I need like a month, 2 months. They'd have all this.
Nah, they got to peek out. I don't. I just got to, make sure I'm at least hydrated and got some sleep.
I love it, bro. That's what I like about you. And I'm very excited that you're going to be back in action. April, May, we could expect to see RVJ active. And like I said, I'm going to be trying to keep you busy, brother. I got a lot of big plans and a lot of things going to be going on here in the United States, and I'd love to have you a part of them all.
Much appreciated, man. I'm excited.
Sounds good, brother. And I will definitely keep you up to date with the stem cells, and I could actually link you up with the guy with VitaCell and all that, and maybe you could also get that shoulder work done as well.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to hear about it. Real, non-salesy stuff. I like real case studies from people that have actually experienced it.
All right. Well, we'll get you that, brother. Thank you again, RVJ. Have a great night,
all right,
brother.
Dude. We'll talk soon. Chill.